Hello and welcome back to Scottish Independence Podcasts. We have a guest with us again this week, Mike Small, who many of you I'm sure will know is the editor of Bella Caledonia. We got in touch with Mike through the Artists for Independence group. If you want to know more about that, we'll put the link in the notes. For now, the reason we invited Mike to come into the studio and talk to us was because Bella Caledonia has just reached an amazing anniversary. So first of all, welcome, Mike. Why don't you tell us about your anniversary?
Hi, thanks for having me. We're going to be 20 years old. We've had 20 years of publishing content about Scottish independence, self-determination, Scottish culture, politics, and a really diverse range of topics. And we realised, over 1,400 different writers and artists in that time. So that's been an amazing experience. Somebody said to me, does that mean that you've been moderating a website comments board for 20 years? And I said, yes, unfortunately, it also means that. So we thought we would like to celebrate a 20-year anniversary.
Absolutely. You should. I mean, a few years is a long time in current day media. So 20 years, I think, is phenomenal.
It's interesting, isn't it? I'm just sitting here taking 20 off 26 and getting 6 and thinking 2006 was when you started it. That was an interesting kind of shift, wasn't it, in Scotland, especially with the, in Parliament. I mean, what made you, presuming there was other people involved with you setting it up, but what brought it about?
Well, it was myself and Kevin Williamson, the publisher and writer, and we had two thoughts. We had a kind of critique of the media in Scotland. Surprise, surprise. And we thought we needed a publication that kind of mixed cultural analysis or coverage with political. So that was the first idea. And the second idea was we held a meeting in Leith proposing that there be a referendum on Scottish independence.
Oh, novel idea.
That's interesting, isn't it?
So when we did that, people were kind of, that idea was pretty out there. It wasn't really... Yeah. It hadn't really gathered the momentum in 2006, 2007. But those were our two kind of founding ideas. Let's explore the Constitution and push for massive change. And that the media in Scotland is inadequate, is very staid, biased, but also just very conservative with a small c.
And it's changed quite a lot over the years in terms of how you produce the publication, hasn't it? Because I remember inserts in the National for a while, and I think before that, was it not an actual newspaper format or magazine format before that?
Well, we were always online, but in the first few years, we did publish a print edition, but it was more as a kind of offshoot for events and things. And then we had, for several years, a partnership with the National, where we produced a monthly magazine.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Came with them, and that was a great collaboration and allowed us to do print. Because although I'm always going about how print media is dead, actually I really like working in print. But that collaboration went on for several years, and then they changed their subscription model, so it didn't really work for them to do a monthly print publication. But it was a good collaboration to do at the time. Yeah. And certainly that's where I first came across you, I think, so that you do piggyback on each other's audiences when you collaborate, don't you? Yeah.
I think one of the things that I first came across was, at the time, wasn't so much the articles. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's just got some really, really good writing in it. But it was the artwork, because you've just had some fantastic artwork. And I mean, I don't know if that was people drawn to, getting involved because they wanted the same things, but it certainly got some beautiful, beautiful illustrations.
Oh, thanks. That's good. Yeah. I mean, we have worked with cartoonists and illustrators and designers over the years, and that's been part of our sort of outlook, is to work not just with writers, but across different mediums. And for a long time, we worked with Lorna Miller, who was the only woman cartoonist being published in the UK on a regular basis. So that was great to work with her. and then she went on to publish a book from the cartoons that were published in Bella. And we worked with Stuart Bremner, who many of you know as a great artist, and many others. So yeah, we're keen to still do that. I think the visual working online does offer you the opportunity to work in visual medium quite a lot.
Yeah,
definitely, yes. And you must have seen considerable change in the wider media landscape in Scotland over that 20 years. What's your assessment of it? Is it better now or worse, or what?
Mixed, I think. I think that's quite a complicated story. I mean, I think when we started, there was a blog called SNP Tactical Voting. I don't know if anyone remembers that, which was kind of, there was very, very few independence blogs or projects out there. And so we've kind of outlasted or survived all them. And in that time, I think blogs have kind of emerged, but the critique that is often made is that they're often one single male voice.
Yes.
And I think what's happened since then is that there's a lot of bigger projects have sprung up that are podcasts or use video. And of course, everything has moved onto social media. So now people have huge Instagram reels or Twitter following. So it's kind of more diverse in that sense. And then I think in terms of print media, we've seen in that period the rise of the Sunday Herald, the demise of the Sunday Herald, and the rise of the National as sort of pro-independence print media.
Yeah.
But I think that the main issue of the lack of diversity in Scottish media is still there. It's still a massive issue.
Yeah. You mentioned a single male voice. I mean, that is something that we mull over quite a lot. I mean, Marlene and I, two women doing a podcast, an awful lot of our guests are women because it's people we meet, and we do try and give women a platform. But we were just musing the other day, weren't we, Marlene, that women we have on the podcast, it tends to be because we've invited them.
Yeah.
Men who come on the podcast, it's often because they've approached us and asked if they could come on. But it is interesting just how women perhaps aren't as good at putting themselves forward, perhaps. So that is something we do try and do to restore the balance. But
that phenomenon you've just described is something that I've experienced, is that it's almost a meme or a joke that men who aren't qualified to talk about something will talk about something. And women who, even when they are qualified, need to be encouraged to step up into that space. So as a commissioning editor, that is a problem that I have to try and counter. I always think it's funny, Hollywood Sources, the podcast, is three white guys who are frequently an all-male panel. And they recently had a collaboration with Northern Ireland version of them, where they had another three white guys. And it's just like, it's interesting. Have you any sense of self-reflection on that? But no.
I mean, we both got involved in more the media side of it through Kevin Gibney. I mean, you must know, you know Kevin. He just set up Indie Live Radio. He wanted someone from Pensioners for Independence. Someone told him about me. I went along and quite enjoyed myself, and then he kept asking me back, not so much to talk about Pensioners from Independence, but just to kind of be there as a guest in it was an actual studio, it was an actual premises. And Fiona got involved.
Well, I got involved through doing a podcast for Women for Indie, Clacks Women for Indie, and then putting that on Indie Live Radio. Then somehow it just sucked us both in, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then after a while, we realized that it was the podcasting side that people were actually accessing rather than the broadcasting side.
Right.
So I still think that whilst Indie Live Radio is maybe a kind of a glorious failure at the end of the day, it was brilliant for getting to know people and for, making connections. And that's where Marlene and I met. So, networking is important.
That's true, actually. And I mean, talking about networking, because it was when COVID happened and we were not going to be going into a room together somewhere in the south side of Glasgow. That was when it all went online. And actually it opened things up for us as well, because it meant that if a Yes group was having a Zoom meeting with a guest, it could get recorded. Then we could make a podcast or maybe a radio program at the time, but afterwards we could make a podcast from it. So scary time actually over those couple of years with COVID. But from our point of view, it actually enabled us to do a lot more, and it certainly built up a nice little mailing list of people we could contact to get on to talk about things. So it's just interesting how things intertwine and develop, isn't it? Yeah.
That is interesting, because I've heard some people argue that COVID period had a really detrimental impact on the independence movement, because it was just before that time, there was a lot of live marches and events that had to shut down. But that's interesting what you're saying, that it's the law of unintended consequences, isn't it? That some of the posters that came out of it in terms of people learning to network through Zoom and other things.
I just think it's like you get this barrier put in front of you and you find a way around it. And that really is what the independence movement thinks all the time, because we're constantly facing barriers and finding ways around it. But before we get too far into that, let's just make sure we cover your crowdfunder, because we haven't actually covered that. What are you wanting it for? Is it a big party, or have you got future plans, or what?
Well, it's called Bella 2020. And the idea is that we're celebrating 20 years, but we're also looking forward 20 years. So I think that projects like mine need to constantly reimagine themselves and refresh themselves. Otherwise, it grinds, it goes stale. So there's 3 things we want to do. We're trying to raise 20 grand in 20 days to celebrate 20 years. And we're trying to use that money for 3 things. One is to commission people to look forward 20 years and imagine a better Scotland. What would that be? What would that be in housing, in social equality, in peace, in gender equality, whatever it is? We want people to imagine 20 years forward. And it can be about independence, or it can be not in relation to that. It's a total, and we're kind of asking people to be wild and utopian in their thinking. Because the idea is that we often get caught up in the everyday and sort of minutiae of policy, and should we change this a wee bit? We're like, no, think big. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we want to attract new writers and content creators, because if my critique is that the mainstream media is full of the same people saying the same things, we must be different in the independence movement. So I think we've got too narrow a band of people involved in independent media now, for which I'm guilty as being one of the old guard. So how do you get a new generation of fresh thinking and new writers? So that's the second thing we want to do. We want to raise some funds to invite a new crowd. The third thing is, we want to redo the website. There's some things we want to do to integrate other alternative media and fix things on the site that needs refreshed. So there's kind of three aims of the Bella 2020 crowdfund campaign.
Fab. So if people think that that's a worthy cause, which certainly sounds like it, and want to contribute to the crowdfund out, where do they do that?
It's on Crowdfunding UK, and the URL is crowdfunder.co.uk/Bella-Caledonia-2020. And we can share that with your listeners, viewers.
Great. Okay. We'll put that in the notes as well of the podcast. Thanks. There you go. Everybody knows where to go. And if they want to have a look, if they've not heard of Bella, it's bellacaledonia.org.uk. So let's hope that some of our viewers perhaps have not yet explored and decide to go and have a look. We were really enjoyed that one that Vishram had done on the Eurovision Song Contest.
Oh, yeah.
And it was very timely. I was actually visiting my elderly mother last week and refused to let her watch the Eurovision Song Contest on the grounds that I thought we should have been boycotting it. No, we're not voting for that. And actually, having read Vishram's article, I maybe wouldn't have refused to let her watch it. I might have been a better daughter if I'd read it.
Yeah, no, I know. Fiona said to me, "Oh, you should have a read of that one. It's really good." And I looked at the title and went, "Why am I don't want to read anything about the Eurovision Song Contest." However, I did. I did read it, and it's a lovely It's just a lovely bit of writing, actually. I think it goes somewhere that's a bit unexpected, and I just really, really appreciate it. And I'll tell you, I did not know that people from all over the world could vote on it.
I know, that seems crazy, doesn't it?
It just sounds crazy. And, you could imagine, I mean, I'm sorry, I did a bit of me think, that explains why some countries get votes then, but without naming anything. But I just crazy, isn't it? Crazy enough that Australia can be in it, but
America can vote.
Vishwam's always good and takes you to unexpected places, and I really like that about his writing. And I suppose it is a struggle for Bella that one of the things that we like is that we've got such a diverse group of people contributing. So you can log in and go, like, why am I reading about the Eurovision Song Contest? But then you get there. And I suppose it's a bit of a tension between that diversity is good because it's rich and you're not getting the same old thing, because people can't just read about politics every single day.
No, indeed.
If the lens is that narrow, it gets a bit dull. But if it expands too much, then it becomes like, what's going on? This is too broad. So that's an editorial challenge.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. We face that as well all the time, because we're a Scottish Independence podcast. You would expect a lot of it is political chat, which it is, and grassroots activity. We cover a lot, but also we cover the historical stuff. We cover cultural stuff, art in particular. We've just had, Ciara McLean on with her stained glass windows that she does as community projects and then donates to local libraries in Glasgow. That was
that's
a great
amazing
podcast. And then there was the one we've just done was about the Scottish festivals that take place in France to commemorate the Old Alliance, and told us things about our history that we didn't know.
Wow.
So it is getting it broad enough to be variety, but also themed enough that you're right, people come on knowing roughly what they're going to get, I suppose. But
that's sort of one of the aims you were saying, was to think about the next 20 years and getting people to think big. I mean, that just could be so valuable, because it's true, isn't it? You, as you were saying, you get drawn into the minutiae of things, and sometimes it ends up with someone who might have, good ideas themselves, but the conversation can end up picking apart what ScotGov did or didn't manage to do in that bit of legislation, and why didn't it do more? And I mean, it's all understandable. I mean, completely understand that, but it's not very inspiring outside of the narrow group of people who are really, really going to read anything about it. So I think that's just a fantastic way of going about it. Actually, blue sky thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a whole strain of thinking here about imagining different futures, that you need to be able to imagine it and describe it before you can build the road to get there. If you start from a very small premise of like, what are we going to do about this tiny policy, you're never going to be expansive enough. And I think that in Scotland we suffer as well because we don't really have enough think tanks that are really doing creative policy engagement and, as you say, blue sky thinking. We've got think tanks that kind of crunch the numbers about each budget and stuff, but that's not really the same as what we're trying to describe. And I think within the independence movement, we need to keep hold of that idea that the aim is really to transform Scotland. It's not just to change it a wee bit or to change the flag in Edinburgh Castle. It's to transform the place, because that's what's required. So what we're going to do is we're going to commission a whole bunch of people to do this. We're also going to leave it open to readers and people to pitch their ideas. And then we're going to publish it in our magazine, which is called Closer. And so we will publish these 2020 ideas once we get them all gathered together.
There was a group called Future Voices Scotland that did a series of future-focused films, very good films. They're still on YouTube. We'll put the link in the notes. It wasn't 20 years necessarily that you're looking at, and it wasn't writers, but they did try and do little snapshots of what Scotland would be like in the future. I think it was maybe 5 years post-independence or something, and they focused on things like why democracy is different and housing's different, so-and-so's different. And I think it's part of that same approach, isn't it? Can't really get behind something you can't conceive of in your mind. So anything that helps people form that vision is valuable, whether it's film or written. So it sounds like a good approach.
Yeah, I mean, interesting you remembering that project, because they did one set of films and then they were going to do a second, and they were also going to go ask people from, other parts of Scotland, out with the Central Belt. I mean, they wanted to talk to people, who lived up Nortby, and it hasn't happened.
The second round has never appeared.
Happened, which is a shame, because it was really good. I mean, maybe they could get involved in your 2020 kind of project.
Yeah, I mean, we're primarily writers, but we are open to film and audio. So do help us make that connection if that's good.
We'll happily send you the link of the episode that we did. Marlene and I had a lot of fun with it. We invented a time machine to link all the clips together. But I think it tells their story quite well. I shall send you the link.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Can't remember off the top of my head what it was called, but we'll be able to find it. That's the problem podcasting at our age. You can't remember anything. Can't remember the names of things.
I think the other thing about this is, like, I don't know if you've heard this phrase, but in terms of nostalgia, there's yes-talgia, which is the problem within the independence movement of being nostalgic about 2014. And I'm quite nostalgic about 2014 because it was a momentous moment. But I'm also aware, and the idea of yes-talgia tries to confront this, I'm also aware of the fact that if you're 17, 18, 19 today, a lot of the stuff that we would be referring to, they're just like, well, I wasn't there. I don't know what you're talking about. I was a child. Yeah. So there is a need to really engage with young people in terms of polling. Overwhelmingly, yes, supporters. But we can't just talk to them about an event that they weren't present at. We need to say, tell us your story. You be the voice. Here's a platform. We will help profile you.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
That's really important. Do you have a lot of young writers? Are they out there?
We don't have enough, which is why we're doing this. But I think that people are creating content on Instagram and social media more than they are writing 3,000 word essays for Bella. And so, but there are young writers who we need to connect with. But I think there's also people that are creating really interesting, dynamic reels and stories and audio. Yeah. So we'll do both.
Yeah. Brilliant. I mean, Marlene is our TikTok queen, having taken to it like a duck to water after being initially resistant. And actually, it's a completely different form of communicating, isn't it? Because things that work on even long form podcasts, ours are usually about 45 minutes to an hour long, the video, but the short versions, it's a couple of minutes, and it really focuses you on what are the bits that are real big hitters, but also then Marlene's learned how to dress them up with titles and whizzy things and music, and that attention span of your TikTok viewers is much shorter, I think, but also you're competing against a mass of other stuff, so anything that helps them, you've got to grab their attention. I've heard the word attention economy is what we've got there, I think. Yeah. Whereas, the stuff that we're doing, and probably the writers on Bella Caledonia, it's the luxury of that long form. You can actually spend some time on a topic, which I miss. I don't like the short stuff very much.
I mean, it's true, actually, Mike. I mean, when Fiona said, I've made us a TikTok account, I went, well, you'll be doing that yourself. I'm having nothing to do with it. But then I kind of got
2 weeks.
I got drawn in, and it's such a good platform, the app that they give you. I mean, you can do so much with it. So I have got drawn in, and a little bit. It's not addicted, but I could quite easily stay in it for quite a long time. But the thing is, it does from our point of view. So we do something that's much longer.
Yeah.
And it lets us take clips from that, put them on TikTok, and we also put them on other social media, and then hopefully that directs some people towards the full podcast or the full video. So it's handy from that point of view. But I'll tell you, I do find that my attention span is, it's decreased. I mean, I could say it's just because I'm getting old, which is maybe part of it, but it's not just that, actually. I think it does take it. it becomes more difficult to kind of focus on a longer bit of writing. Like 2,000 words is quite a long. It's not that long, but it's long enough. And so if I was thinking, well, if that's happening to me, how much more is it happening to probably younger a couple
young
of
people
generations?
who have been immersed in that for years. I think it's well documented that it does have a corrosive impact over time on people's attention economy, you called it. But I think the thing is probably to be reaching out to different audiences in different mediums. So we won't stop writing long form essays because there's plenty of people that want the space to really engage in kind of critical thinking and the complexity that allows you to do. But at the same time, we need to be able to meet people where they are with other social media forms.
And there's different groups on the different forms as well. I mean, we're on a lot of podcast platforms, but I think it's a different audience that we've got on TikTok from what we've got on YouTube, and it's a different audience on YouTube from what we've got on Spotify. So the more places you are, tailor it a little bit to those places, and it just broadens your reach a bit, I think. But as you say, it's meeting people where they are, isn't it?
Exactly,
Yeah.
If we go back to that point that we touched on earlier about getting contributions from women, and I did have a look. If it's kind of like standard thing that I do if I'm on, a new setup, I sort of have a look to see. I look to see what it's like, and then I look to see how many women have a voice in it or play a part in it. And don't take this for in any way as being a personal criticism, because it really isn't. But, I just went onto the website. I went onto the All Articles tab. Mm-hmm. And I had to go back to another 4 pages before there was an article that was written by a woman. There might have been some that were about women. And I thought, so it's just an example of it, that there are, whether it's barriers or just women are loath to do it, and I just to write, and I just wonder if you've got any ways to try and get around that.
Yeah, I mean, it's don't take it as personal at all. It's a completely valid observation, and I think we published a thing recently about the new writers that we published in the last year, and there's far more women writers in that, and it becomes cyclical because the more women you have, the more women comment. Women tend to comment more on articles written by other women, which is understandable. So it becomes a virtuous circle if you can get more content. We're also working with Pass the Mic, which is Talat Yaqub.
Oh yes, Talat Yaqub,
get more women of colour to write. So that's great because everybody's got their own networks and their own silos. I've got one, just because of who I am. So anything that disrupts those silos is really good. So it's something that we're really working on to change because it's a valid criticism.
When you say women comment on women's material, they also share it through their networks, and that gets it out there as well. But we have, through the Artists for Indie group, this is now, I think, the 4th podcast that we've done with people that we've met through that network, because there's yourself, obviously, Marlene, who did the really brilliant piece of work on, I can't remember the actual title of it, but it was about anti-racism in schools, and that conversation went much wider than that. She was great to talk to.
That was great.
That was a really good one. And then Carol, also from something that we were doing through an art exhibition that turned out she'd been involved in the film I Swear. So we had a great episode with Carol about the film. So it just, networks like that can lead to lots of other things, can't they? But I think maybe we should just do a shout out to any women writers out there. If you think you've got something, get it into Mike at Bella Caledonia. He'd love to hear from you.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's our responsibility as well, is to provide the material, and then we can complain if it's not shown after that.
The other thing we did a few years ago that we could do again is have guest editor posts where you say you get to take over Bella for a week and we'll give you some funding. So that when we did that was heavily skewed towards women and other people who aren't as well represented. And so we can do that, but obviously we need some resource to do that. So
yes, so back to the crowdfunder.
If we can replenish our freelance budget, then we can say to people, come in and here's a budget to choose who you commission and disrupt the sort of norm.
Yeah.
So plenty of things that we can try. I mean, I was at a meeting just at the weekend trying to get Women for Independence, well, our local group anyway, in Stirling and Clackmannanshire, I'm in Clacks, to try and get that up and moving again, because there had been very active groups, obviously around 2014, but over time, and particularly because of COVID, that they were casualties, a lot of them. So it's really good that they're starting to gear up again. And I kind of think it's probably because of the election. I don't know. You can maybe tell us how you feel about the result or how you feel it went. But I'm quite positive that things are starting to move.
Yeah.
You?
Yes. I mean, I think I'm probably more positive than a lot of people. I think there's a lot of negativity about, and I think that it was interesting because the sort of media narrative about it was, this is all terrible. Devolution's terrible, the SNP are terrible, the Greens are terrible, the people of Scotland are terrible, Holyrood's terrible. and you're like, oh, okay, but that was coming from the people who were losing and knew they were going to lose and then did lose terribly. Yeah. So I think there was a kind of like a backwards, like a retreat mechanism in a way to sort of trash everything because they were losing so badly. But there are, and the SNP didn't win a majority. I'm not sure if that was really going to be as significant as people thought. The fact is that we've got a huge pro-Indy majority. Yeah. We've got some really interesting new MSPs, a lot of old MSPs from all parties left. So I think there is a feeling of a refresh, which I think is good. And I think if you look at, there's this kind of dichotomy between the dire message, everything is terrible, and then actually some historic things happening, like the collapse of the two-party system, the rise of Plaid Cymru in Wales, the idea that in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, there are independence parties in government that can work together, which I think is completely historic. So I think that there are some high notes and some good things going on, despite the gloom that was deliberately spread.
Yes, absolutely. And that's encouraging, because that's sort of, it's good that positivity is out there, I think. But I was watching just the election of the First Minister just before we jumped into StreamYard. And even then, you know, Anna Sarwar couldn't resist sticking the knife in. And of course, Offord was, as you would expect Offord to be, the sort of bitterness seeping out of them at every pore. And yet we are in this different place, I think. And John Swinney seems to have tiger in his tank just now. You know, he just seems very, very energized in a way that I haven't seen him before. So I'm really hopeful that will continue, because we've been saying, well, you know, if you get everybody ready for something to happen and something to change, and then we get this historic context of the 3 of the 4 parts of the UK all want the UK to dissolve. If they sort of go, oh well, actually no, we're going to do something else instead, that's it forever as far as I'm concerned, you know.
I wasn't watching the election of Mr. Swinney, but I did hear BBC Scotland reporting at lunchtime. Basically, they were just reporting what Anna Sarwar was saying. I mean, that was what it was. And apparently, well, all I heard was he was saying how everyone was scunnered and the whole of Scotland is scunnered. And no wonder they were scunnered, because blah, blah, blah. And I thought, oh, God, you know, you just lost really, really badly, and you're just sitting now saying, "Oh, it's because Scotland was scunnered." And he didn't get to the point of saying, you know, well, if they were scunnered, why didn't they vote for me rather than someone going back to the same person? But anyway, that's the whole thing.
That's about right, Marlene. I mean, there's this funny thing where they're sort of reframing SNP winning 57 MSPs and, you know, the Greens having a historic thing as a terrible failure. And they're also not really taking on board what just happened. So Anna Sarwar and Russell Finlay are just staying in post. They led their parties to historically their worst results ever. And they're just saying, well, that's fine. It was great. And you know, when you start picking apart the Labour campaign, it was catastrophically bad. It was completely directionless. It had bizarre policies that just came out of nowhere. it was entirely focused on Sarwar as a kind of presidential candidate, despite the fact that we know that the public doesn't really drawn to him. And then at the end, the result that we all knew was going to happen, they just say, well, that's fine. So
it is bizarre. I mean, Russell Finley, with his much reduced cadre of, I think, 12 MSPs he's down to, stood up there and said, Swinney must do what the people of Scotland really want, which is his view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I am, in answer to your question, I am positive. I think there's lots of positives.
That's good.
It doesn't mean that there aren't challenges, and the rise of the far right in Scotland is a challenge. And how to oppose those forces is a real challenge for a broad section of society to come together and figure out how we do that. And obviously, how we progress the national question from here is a massive challenge. So I'm positive, but I know that there are those massive challenges ahead for all of us.
Yeah. But as we said earlier, there's more barriers for us to get round, and we're knocking them down as we go along. And this has got to be the most favourable context we've ever had. I don't think that Westminster can carry on just ignoring the 3 devolved election results. They're just, it's almost as if they don't talk about it, it doesn't really exist. And okay, they've got a distractive sideshow of their own leadership woes, but we can't let that, we can't fail to capitalise, I think, on that situation, because it is unprecedented. And it's got to mean something. It has to mean something. In terms of the indie media landscape, I mean, you've said it's still too narrow, and I think that's too. We all struggle to capture our bit of it. Is there anything you think that we could do as an indie media that would either support each other better or network better, perhaps, or it strikes me that we're all in our own little pocket. And I had a conversation with Kevin Gibney a couple of years ago, and we were saying there's all these different podcasts around. What if we could work with them? And of course, one by one, we went through all the ones we could think of. We go, well, I'm not working with them, or they won't like us, so I don't like that. And before you knew, we thought, no, actually, we can't work together. But something as broad as the indie media, is there something better we could be doing with it?
Well, I think that's a good observation, that people on the right of politics are often very good at uniting together, despite the fact they might have completely different views. And those on the progressive or radical side are famous for critiquing each other and falling out. So I think that there's a need for some solidarity and some collaborations. I do think that would be really useful. And whether that's sharing of content, like we try and profile different podcasts on Bella, not just our own. And I think that sort of cross promotion is really good. And it used to be an idea of let 1,000 flowers bloom, and so you just get tons of new projects kicking off. But the problem with that is that I think it ends up being too broad. So you get 1,000 flowers bloom, but none of them are very well funded or. So I think that the need for some amalgamation and collaboration and unification of existing projects is probably useful.
Yeah, I mean, reaching out, I suppose, to some that we would be prepared to work with is maybe a good starting point. We do try and network wherever we can, and we have met some really, people that we do work with and who are.
We do have some regular guests who, I mean, so one example is Isabel Lindsay comes on with Bill Ramsey. They usually say we want to come on and talk about whatever it is, and we have them on, and we'll interact with them, but it is kind of their show for that particular site, and that's sort of developed. Another sort of regular kind of guest we have on is Craig DL, who of course has all sorts of ways to get his information and thinking out, but he also just likes this coming and talking to us as well, and it's a bit of a different audience maybe, and we interact with them perhaps in a different kind of way. Just this morning I was just I was on your website, and I was looking at things, and I was thinking, I mean, there's some people that we've had on as guests who I thought, oh, I should suggest to them that they contact you and maybe write an article for you. Now, that's one way in which, there just could be, there's overlap, but it's kind of like knowing about each other and sort of thinking, oh, maybe that could also work well on that other platform.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Exactly. And it's cross-fertilization. And I would do the same in reciprocation of sending you ideas of people that have written that might like to come on.
Oh yes, please, yeah. Definitely. I mean, but just on the basis of the article, we think we must get Vishram on because he sounds like it'd be really interesting. Yeah. So yeah, please do that.
I mean, another one that caught my eye, which was I was thinking about it in reverse, was, and I can't remember the author's name, but the name of the article was about community wealth building and the future of Scotland's economy. And we've touched into that whole thing about wealth building and land and who owns it, and the whole thing about an extractive economy, of which he talks about a little bit.
Neil McEnroy.
Oh, that's right, Neil McEnroy. Yeah, and I thought, he would be good to get on the podcast, because there was a lot of overlap between what he said just in that article and what we've heard other people saying, and once or twice they've said it on our podcast. So that would be really valuable.
I mean, I think maybe this is a way forward to think of themes that could then appear across platforms. So if we did Community Wealth Building Week or Land Reform Week or whatever, take a theme. He's great, and I think what's interesting about him is he's developed these ideas and then got them into Parliament and then got them into statute. And the challenge, so that is great for the kind of 2020, how are you building these things? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes we think of independence as a sort of event in the future after which everything will be great. It's sort of a year zero. and I know Leslie Riddick goes on about this, about how you actually need to build the institutions and the memory muscle of practicing democracy so that you can get those things. But that might be an opportunity if we thought about some themes that then were popping up on different platforms and exploring those ideas.
So yes, but that would be the MMT theme perhaps, or the economics theme, and currency theme. Yeah, and that's the kind of approach that we were saying it would be nice if, instead of the Yes movement always being funneled through Parliament and MPs, actually topic by topic start building what we want. Once we've got the shackles of unionism, off us, we don't have to only start thinking on day zero, because apart from anything else, we'll all be too hungover that day.
But also, it's interesting in terms of what you were saying about division, because the Yes movement has been divided, but if you took that approach of saying, well, what are the areas that we are united in wanting to explore, then that could create some more positive energy, because it can just descend into factionalism and sort of backbiting, which is, ultimately not really productive. I'm not suggesting that you just pretend that there aren't differences, but if you put all of your energy into battling your foes, it's not very productive, I don't think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that could be a good approach, couldn't it?
We are open to collaborations. We are open to people pitching to us, and we are in a space just now where we're looking back and celebrating 20 years and kind of going, my God, that's gone quickly. And it's a time for, I suppose it's spring, so it's time for reinvention, refresh, what needs fixed, what needs changed. So those collaborations don't need to be just, I've got an article. They could be somebody coming in saying, why haven't you done this? Or I think you need to do this better. We're open to that, because otherwise you just get into a rhythm and you need to be constantly changing and refreshing. So we're open invitation for people to collaborate.
Brilliant. Well, that's there. You heard it here first, folks. A nice open invitation to get in touch with Mike. And we'll stick all the links, as we mentioned, in the notes. Thanks very much for coming. It's been really interesting.
Really interesting.
Thanks very much for having me, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. We will.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're listening on YouTube, you can click the little bell and you get a reminder whenever we put out a new episode, which is every Friday.
And sign up for our mailing list. You can do that from the website. And we always send one out at the beginning of each month to tell you what's happening. Last but not least, you can buy us a coffee on coffee.com.
And we'll catch you later. Bye now.